House of Gucci is the latest film from director Ridley Scott, his second film of 2021 after the brilliant The Last Duel. This film has a whopping cast, starring Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, Al Pacino, Jeremy Irons, Jared Leto, Jack Huston and Salma Hayek. The movie first came to my attention. Well, I mean, it's always worth keeping an eye on whatever Ridley Scott's doing because his projects are usually interesting and so varied. And though the man does have his problems, in general, if you give him a good script, he delivers. But the film first came to my attention when I heard that shortly after The Irishman came out, Scott wanted perhaps my two favourite actors, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, in his new film to play brothers. De Niro eventually dropped out. I think it was because COVID delayed the filming of Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon and there was a scheduling conflict. But there was a more than enough adequate replacement in Jeremy Irons, and the film remained one I was very much looking forward to. So I went into the film knowing next to nothing about it. I wasn't aware of the true life story and only caught glimpses of the trailer. The film follows a young woman, Patrizia Reggiani, played by Lady Gaga, as she hooks up with Adam Driver's Maurizio Gucci, son of Rodolfo Gucci, played by Irons, and nephew of Aldo Gucci, played by Pacino, the two brothers having a 50-50% stake in the Gucci fashion empire. From the off, Patricia comes off as something of a gold digger, an opportunist. That's the way I felt the film played it. Others might disagree and feel she fell in love with Maurizio. Maybe it's a bit of both. But anyway, she gains a solid hold of the impressionable Maurizio, who tends to spend most of the runtime with and confronts any issues in life by having a big stupid grin on his face. All it takes is a flash of her distractingly prominent cleavage, or a twerk of the ass, and she has Maurizio completely agreeing with whatever idea she has. Maurizio's father disapproves of his son's choice of a wife, so father and son become estranged, but over time, slowly but surely, Patrizia maneuvers and manipulates her husband and other members of the Gucci family to position Maurizio and her as the powers of the Gucci empire. There's quibbling spouses, family fallout, betrayal, deceit, and ultimately murder in Ridley Scott's almost 2-hour and 45-minute epic drama which spans decades. We have to talk about the accents, as everyone online seems to be doing, because this film is pretty balmy, and much of the weirdness comes from the way everyone talks. Don't get me wrong, the acting in the movie was great. Lady Gaga was brilliant. She's probably going to get an Oscar nomination. Al Pacino had a few juicy scenes and was really good. Personally, I thought Jeremy Irons was the best of the bunch, though he wasn't in the film much. Jared Leto is unrecognizable in heavy makeup as Paolo Gucci. Now, of course, they could have just got a tubby, bold guy to play him, but I guess making an established actor unrecognizable is all the rage now. It's the kind of stunt casting the Oscars love and was probably done with the Academy Awards in mind. Now, of course, the movie follows an Italian family, except everyone is speaking English. One way to do this, putting aside casting actual Italians and having them speak Italian, which is the best option if we ignore the film's box office chances, is to have everyone do their own accent, like The Death of Stalin. Another is to have everyone all do a kind of similar posh transatlantic accent so that everyone is speaking the same and different to their usual accent enough that you don't have a problem with it. A bit like what they did with Scott's previous movie, The Last Duel, where the actors weren't speaking with a French accent but weren't using their own either. And of course the other method is to just have everyone doing Italian accents. With House of Gucci, it was like everyone was given a different memo and just ran wild with their own style, with most basing their accents on Italian characters they've watched from 70s exploitation films, and Scott didn't bother reining anyone in. He's never been an actor's director. Sigourney Weaver once famously said something along the lines of him paying more attention to his sets and toys than his actors. And I remember Michael Fassbender was trying out different accents for his character in Prometheus, and Scott was very indifferent to the choices, not helping out very much, which I always took as odd, because surely the way one of your main characters speaks is something you'd pay attention to. But Gaga I thought was good. Her accent has been criticised heavily, and perhaps actual Italians want to weigh in and give their thoughts in the comments below. If I remember correctly, the film's vocal coach said she sounded more Russian than Italian. But the thing is, not everyone from a country speaks in a generic stereotypical way you'd think they would, and I saw a video online of the real Patrizia speaking, and Gaga sounded very similar, so I didn't have a problem with the way she spoke and found her pretty convincing. Adam Driver makes a feeble attempt at an Italian accent, perhaps in spirit of the feeble nature of his character, but he sounds like a student who went on a gap year in Italy and has come back with a slight twang. Jeremy Irons didn't even try. he just sounded like Jeremy Irons with a cold. Al Pacino, who remember is of Italian descent and has effortlessly played Italian characters, came off as a caricature. Maybe it's because I've heard his normal voice in real life too much that I couldn't buy it, but I really struggled to get over the fact that this was an actor putting on a very thick accent. It felt like an amped up version of his mobster voice, and wouldn't sound out of place in a Saturday Night Live sketch. There were moments where he seemingly completely dropped it, as in one scene he sounded like his character from Heat, and the vibe I got was of a guy who, in the film's universe, was pretending to be Italian. Say what you want about him though, he turned up and gave a solid performance. And then you have Jared Leto. I don't know what in the blue fuck this guy was trying to do. He sounded like he walked in from the wrong film set, namely Super Mario Smash Brothers, because the guy was a perfect Mario. I was expecting him to burst out with, "It's a me, Mario!" In fact, he actually did. I remember a scene where he went, "It's a me, Pablo." It was so over the top, so bombastic, it was a straight up parody. Hey, maybe the real life guy actually spoke like that, who knows? But Leto's accent is so distracting that he actually damages the tone of the film. I was holding my mouth to stop myself from laughing when he spoke on screen. Granted, he's supposed to be a bum of a character, and his dialogue clearly shows that he's supposed to be a comic relief, like when he's worried about his father being in prison and he says something like, "Oh, what can I design when my father might have dropped the soap?" But it's wild and challenging as a viewer because when you're watching an emotional scene of Pacino breaking down, you just know that Leto is going to burst out and say, "Oi, I'm so sorry, Papa." It felt like a performance of a racist guy who's intentionally trying to take the piss out of Italians. Where's Michael Francese when you need him? There's a scene between Pacino and Irons, who are both brothers, both Italian, and hilariously they're both doing wildly different accents while speaking to each other. Everybody seems to have come to set with their own idea of what kind of film this was and what kind of character they were playing, and it all clashed in out-of-sync fashion with colourful and campy results, with no moderation to keep everybody consistent. Pacino and Leto are father and son and share many scenes, but I do not exaggerate when I say they appear to have been characters nabbed from two completely different films. Everybody is chewing the scenery so hard you can hear the munching seep through the celluloid, but in a weird way, Leto's bonkers performance captures the spirit of the film because it really is a crazy wild ride. Everything's so over the top. The music that's slapped randomly all over the movie, which makes it sometimes feel like a Gucci advert you see on TV. The mental sex scene where Lady Gaga actually looks like she's having a seizure and is being used as a construction drill. But behind the entertaining performances and crazy accents, it's difficult for the film to hide that it's actually quite dry and boring. Confusing as well, in terms of tone and pacing. It's difficult to know where exactly characters are at points in the story, or when. Like, for example, they are celebrating Pacino's birthday, and about 2 scenes later they are celebrating it again in Italy. Is this to show that a year has passed, or did they just have another party in Europe? And tone, again, the film is very funny, and it's supposed to be, but there's times where you're laughing when you're not sure you're supposed to be. Is Leto's accent actually part of the joke? Because he kills tension and emotional impact of scenes he is in. I mean, the acting, the music, the accents, at times, like Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, it feels like the movie is actually taking the piss out of the pompous nature of the characters. But it is all theatre, it's a pantomime of a movie, which might excite some, turn off others, but it definitely isn't a sweeping family drama saga a la The Godfather or something. And for a film almost 3 hours long, bizarrely it feels rushed. They really took their time with the story, developing the couple before they get married, Aldo taking the duo under their wing. I didn't have a problem with the movie's slow pacing, if it stayed that way, but about 2 and a bit hours in, it's like the movie thinks, oh shit, someone gets shot in this film and there's an entire court case and we've only got half an hour left. So it just blitzes through what should have been the most interesting parts of the film, when really the opening hour of the movie could have easily been an opening 20 minutes in another. If anything, the film should have been longer. The editing was all over the place. I'm sure there were more scenes in the movie that were cut out. It's like 1 minute Gaga and Driver are madly in love and the next he hates her, but there's no scene of him coming to some kind of understanding of this, some kind of epiphany. So many plot elements of the movie are like that. Choppy. I was reminded of Martin Scorsese's Casino watching this film. Scorsese, who apparently was poised to direct House of Gucci at one point, and I kind of wish he did instead because it's right up his street. Both films are extravagant and indulgent. Both tell a large-scale story of greedy people bringing about their end and an intimate story of a marriage in decay. But Casino does everything so much better, and on top of that, shows you the ins and outs of the way mob-controlled casinos work, whereas there's surprisingly little in House of Gucci of the actual fashion and the business side of things. And Scorsese's film actually has a point. It's the mob version of Paradise Lost. But House of Gucci is seemingly slapstick and excessive for the sake of it. Just rich snobs sticking their noses up at each other. It feels like the gay best friend of Casino. You do expect, and are ultimately disappointed in the lack of shady backroom deals, tense power struggles, and family members strategizing against each other, but there wasn't much of that. And confrontations usually involve characters hollering at each other, but then weirdly professing their love for each other seconds later. House of Gucci has a very interesting story, not told in an interesting way though. Rather, the more eye-catching elements of the film relate to how mental it is and without restraint. The film would probably be a more engaging drama without the balmy accents and over-the-top acting, mainly from Leto. But ironically, it's those very accents that make the film entertaining. The Last Duel has been a massive flop and seems to have already been buried, despite being a good film. House of Gucci was touted as an Oscar frontrunner and is going great at the box office, but it's a far more mediocre movie. Go figure. I give the movie a 6.5 out of 10.